Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Affordable Housing Trust Committee meeting. It's Thursday, March 12th. The time is 7 p.m. And I'm Martha Gannon, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. First order of business is to review and sign any bills.
No bills this evening.
No bills, okay, thank you. Second is to review and approve any meeting minutes, which everyone, did you have a chance to read the minutes?
I did look them over, yes.
Can I get a vote to approve them?
Would you like a motion?
A motion.
I move to approve the minutes of December, it was 2024, correct?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's it. Okay. Moving on. Any board member comments? No? Okay. I would just like to once again announce that we still have one open position on the Affordable Housing Trust Committee. So if you're interested, please reach out. Next order of business, the staff report.
Sorry, staff report.
So some good news. One of the first things, UHLC, I think, has released the updated subsidized housing inventory for Shrewsbury. They released it to us. I don't know at what point they'll update on our website, but the latest numbers show that our subsidized inventory is above the 10%. This includes units from the latest 409 South Street and 104 Main Street 40B projects. So once we reach the subsidized housing inventory, it allows us to have safe harbor, which gives us more local control if we do receive a certain project, a 40B project. So I wanted to say that, share that good news. The second thing I would like to report is the planning department is working with the town manager's office on the 15 Maple reuse. So we uploaded a survey, not sure when, maybe a few weeks ago, and I believe it's over 800 responses we received about that survey. If you do have a chance to, please fill that survey. I believe it's opened until the end of the month. And that survey will help us guide how the site will be redeveloped. There will also be public workshops held on March 31st. I believe that is a Tuesday. I'm just going to check. March 31st from 4 to 6:30 p.m. and a second workshop on April 14th, which is also a Tuesday, from 6 to 8 p.m. So it will provide the public to come and give opportunity for public comment to see what they would like to, how the site they would like to be redeveloped. The third thing that we're working on is in collaboration with the consultant, the planning department is working on updating our hazard mitigation plan, which helps us update any emergency responses and allows us to receive federal funds from FEMA. The draft plan is open to the public for review. We will have a public outreach meeting with the consultant at the COA next Monday. I believe at 6 p.m. not in the Council on Aging, in the police department. It's been updated, so it's the police department training room. So it's from 6 to 8 p.m. So if you have time available, please do attend. Some of the things the planning department is working on.
Excellent. Excellent. Any comments? Negative. Okay. Next discussion items are the parcels of land.
Yeah, so at the January 2026 meeting, we had a presentation from CMRPC a CMRPC that looked at the top 5 parcels, largest parcels from our initial list of 16 parcels that were chosen from, that the planning department chose from a GIS analysis. And the top 5 parcels were reviewed based on weighted environmental, transportation, and quality of life considerations. And so the top 2 parcels that were chosen were 31 Cypress Avenue and North Quinsigamond, and 210 North Quinsigamond Avenue. So I just wanted to use this time to kind of discuss and kind of review the parcels together, and what are some benefits or positive traits that some of these parcels have, and what are some drawbacks. So kind of I just wanted to go through them. The first one we have is 210 North Quinsigamond Avenue. It's about 2.4 acres. It's about, looking at the score, it's about a mile from, Route 9. So it's pretty close to a commercial corridor. It has access to a road, to a main road, North Quinsigamond Avenue. It does abut existing multifamily housing at Eagle Terrace, I believe that is the name. So existing multifamily housing on North Quinsigamond. So, and also it abuts to a larger privately held parcel that's 216 North Quinsigamond Avenue, which is about 9 acres. This parcel I have observed, and I believe we would like to do tax title because it's been under the same ownership for 20 years and hasn't changed. So hopefully we could, if at some point we could purchase a parcel, we could do a bigger project, but that's not under our control, but something to flag. And also could provide some from buffering for the single family homes nearby, if we do have that additional parcel at 216 North Quinsigamond. There are concerns, however. 104 Main Street, the recently approved 40B project, is at the end of North Quinsigamond, and that could bring additional traffic. So that's something to keep in mind. We also have the new a proposed Selco location at 248 North Quinsigamond. It is also an existing wooded lot, and there are single-family neighbors around that too, not just multifamily. So it's just something to keep in mind. And then we have 31 Cypress Avenue, which is the northwest part of town, I believe, near the high school, right near the high school. So for this, some of the advantages, it's much larger parcel, and if we combine it with 31R Cypress, we could, there's a lot more acreage that we can get. It doesn't have, however, it doesn't have any road access. There currently isn't a road. We have to build one that connects to Cypress Avenue. It does abut a proposed or under construction over 55 community, Greenbrier, near Greenbrier. And so that's something to consider. If we would like this to be buffering from the neighborhood from this over 55 community. There are wetlands in the proximity, though not within the 100 feet buffer, but it does connect to existing wooded area, so something to consider. Other than this, there is the high school, and so maybe additional traffic adding with more units could be an issue. Yeah, so those were the top 2 that we looked at, and some, positive traits and then some drawbacks. And then we have something that we, yeah, sorry,
Real quick, on Cypress,
yeah.
just to refresh, how big is the acreage with 31 and 31R?
Let me double check. Okay, so 31R is 4.9, and then 30 Cypress is 6.5.
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so more than 10 acres if we use that.
Is there a road? There was no road going in, right?
There isn't. You would have to. So it's kind of like a, there's like an offshoot, but it's not connected. It's just like there's like a space between two houses that would connect. That could be proposed to connect.
That could, okay.
And then something that we kind of came across the planning department was 249 Green Street. This is a parcel like at the end of Green Street, almost near the Grafton T station, the MBTA station. So this is a large parcel. It was excluded from our initial analysis of town-wide parcels because it has wetlands on the site. However, the wetlands are mostly on the parcel next to it, below it, as well as on straddling on the southern part. So it is about 32 acres. So, it could be, there is the potential for it to be subdivided to support a modest affordable housing development while designating the remainder as permanently protected conservation land. I think this is something to consider given that as a town, we do want more affordable housing. However, we also want to protect whatever open space we do have. So that's also something to consider, that why we put that on your radar to review. So some of it, some advantages is about 32 acres. We could split the lot. It is close to an MBTA station, so close to transit. It is on a very small, Green Street is a pretty narrow road. So there would be, we would need some upgrading of that road enough to support potential units there. We could pursue that through Community One Stop or other things to get funding in order to support that road for that development.
If you don't
Yeah.
mind me jumping in
Yeah.
at that point, I might be thinking of the wrong area, but I believe that there's a new UPS facility that's also being built quite
Yeah.
close to there. I thought that they were already having plans to upgrade roads in that area. I could be wrong.
No, yes, you're right. At Centec Boulevard, the UPS site, yeah, that's between Grafton and Shrewsbury. From my understanding, I don't know if they're doing the whole, they're doing Centec improvements.
Yep.
I don't know if they're going to improve Green Street.
Okay, but it might be interesting to dovetail with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something good to know. So, yeah, I know I did go all three of them at once, but I would like for the board to kind of discuss. And then at the next meeting also, we can have that again and maybe, prompt a discussion with the select board or at some point, to have a shared, like a workshop or something where we can kind of delve into that and ultimately see what we can do with the parcels of land. So, just want to see, how are you feeling as a board, which parcels you're leaning to, or how do you feel? What do you like?
How many units do you think could fit on Green Street?
So if we could do like a pretty modest one, it depends, on how, on topography, but if we do, we could make like a small cluster subdivision to support that. So with that, because a lot of affordability comes down to how big the homes are or the size of the units. So if, if we do minimize them, 1,000, 1,200 square feet, and also trying to minimize that. We can have, it depends, from the housing production plan, we would ideally want 25 to 30 is what our and also identified as a goal from the trust. So it really depends on what the trust wants and what can actually be supported, because we can have a number of ideally 30 to 40, but then it might even come down 10 to 20. So we could aim for a higher number, and then realistically, given it is near wetlands, it has existing vegetated area, so it could come down to that. That's something. So it really depends on what we can propose something, and then once we actually do assess the site, which I will talk about later, that will determine how many units can actually be built.
So would they be, I don't know, is it zoned for like multifamily, or would we be looking, it's
So-
ultimately up to us, or something more like Westboro's doing, that tiny house community
Right.
type thing?
So
something like
under
that,
our
or-
zoning bylaws, we do have the cluster subdivision that can support maybe 10 to 12 units. But if we do want something more tightly, a little bit more density, but also kind of appear with the character of the neighborhood, we could go for a comprehensive permit, which allows us to build more units than what is allowed by the zoning.
Okay.
I like that,
I like that too.
because it's also close to the Westboro T and the Grafton
Right.
MBTA stop.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this is a great long-term prospect. I know that you said that it still needs assessment, stuff like that, but yeah, this seems really cool.
Yeah.
And it gives a nice neighborhood feel, for the people too.
Your market basket, so it's
Yeah,
close
we have
to-
all the,
The proximity to public transport is also very important.
Right,
I've used that station before and allowed me to get into Boston and work for several years back,
Yep.
which was really, really important, I think.
use that station today.
Oh, really?
The Westboro.
No, I was gonna say, and Kushal, you mentioned it. This is really great work, and I think it's exciting to think about what the trust could do with these parcels. I certainly would like to bring this conversation to the rest of the select board at some point, just so that we can, I think as a trust, so that the trust can share their thoughts and the board can just exchange that dialogue to see what is the strategy that we want
Right.
for
Right,
these. Because I think one of the exciting things that you mentioned at the top of our meeting today is we have reached that 40B commitment of the 10%. We're a little bit above that line, and so I'm sure the select board at some point will have conversations about what will a strategy look like to stay above that line to maintain safe harbor. And I think that exploring these options as something to support that work makes sense.
Right. And, some parcels we might do a single family or a duplex, and some parcels do multifamily. So there isn't a rule that we have to rule out and just pick one. If you would like to pick two or even explore all three, like it really depends on what the trust would like to do and to see happen. And so from there, I think I was going to move on to some of my, the next part of what I wanted to talk about is how we will go through once we have selected those sites. So right now we're in like a pre-development process of like choosing the parcels that we want to do, and that has been taking a lot of time. The first step that we're going to go to is assessing the site. So we have kind of done a very high end or a very high level assessment in terms of looking at the parcel from its access to transportation, environmental, and zoning. However, when if we do a more deep dive analysis for assessing the site, we'll have to look at things like access to utilities like water and sewer. You know, if it has water and sewer access, so we need to connect that. What is its property value, title and deed, some of its physical characteristics like topography, as well as realistically if there are any wetlands or any vegetation, how will we minimize the disturbance of that? So kind of what we will work, if we can work with MHP, Massachusetts Housing Partnership. They have a technical assistance grant for trusts and for towns that are looking to develop affordable housing and public land. And that helps you within the first part of assessing the site. And they work with an engineering firm that will do all of that, the first part of assessing the site. So when I attended the Massachusetts Housing Partnership Housing Conference last June, I believe, there was a presentation on an example in Gloucester of how they built housing authority units on existing public land, and it was very hard because of topography, but they ultimately went through that, but they get funds to hire an engineering firm to do that. So that will be the first part. And also looking at the build analysis of what can be built by right by zoning, because with zoning, you'll need to conform also, it controls how many units you want to build, but also it depends on how many units you want to build, the parking spaces you need, and also the setbacks. So those can be constraints that can really constrain an affordable housing project. So depending on how we want to go, we can go with the comprehensive permit if that will meet the needs of our project better. So we'll find that out during that process. The second step is, I'll probably just go to the first two, and then at some point we'll go to talk more about the RFP. But the second one is, once we've finalized the sites, we'll need to develop or set goals to see what we want to achieve with the project. We're going to look at a target population. Who do we want to serve? Seniors, families, young adults, a mixture of. Or do we want it as a rental or for homeownership? There is a lack of low-income rental options available in Shrewsbury, so that could be something that we want to consider. Do we want a completely affordable, or do we want a mix of market rate and affordable? And also our affordability threshold. How much do we want it as a percentage of the area median income? We can have it at 50%, 60%, 80%. A lot of the recent affordable housing projects only do 80. So we could even set it lower so that we're really targeting who would really need this housing at 60 or 50%. And then we look at things like design guidelines, which the preferred unit mix, 1 or 2, 3, how many 1, 2, and 3 types of bedrooms, site features to preserve, in 249 Green Street's case, the vegetation there, and then something like the type of land disposition, are we going to, when we dispose of the land, any public land that the town owns, in order for it to be developed, we have to dispose of it through Chapter 30B. And so we can either have it be sold to a developer, or we could have it as a long-term lease. So the developer can build it, but we will still own it. And there are advantages and disadvantages of that. The long-term lease will allow us to have that affordability and perpetuity. However, it does have more constraints on a developer. So there are things to consider depending on what we want to choose. and then the last is project implementation. We need to give a pretty good deadline for. Ideally, these projects take about 2 to 4 years to be completed, so we need to set a realistic timeline with developer in our RFP. We will have at what point will the property be transferred to the developer? From that MHP's guidelines, they looked at a common point is when construction loan is closing, and most development issues have been resolved. That's typically when we transfer from the town to the developer, if we do have that. So that's there. And then before an RFP, we would like to have, we would need a public meeting to happen to help review the goals that we as a trust have chosen for this project for public review and before an RFP is finalized. So these are some of the things in step 2 that we need to consider once we have the parcels finalized that we want to build on. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions.
Does town meeting have to get involved in this too?
Town meeting for the disposition, yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
I have a question. If we do choose the long-term lease option, is there any possibility for the trust to get funds going forward from that, or is that something that wouldn't make any sense? If you're not sure, that's totally fine. It's just
In regards funds from.
well, I know that one of the things we talked about in some of our earlier meetings is securing a more stable revenue
Right.
source for the trust. I was wondering if we were able to, through some of those long-term leases and stuff, I know it goes back to the town, but is it possible the trust would be able to get a small portion of that for their income?
That is a good idea. I am not 100% sure.
That's totally
I can
fine.
check back.
I might be saying something crazy.
No, that's
but I'm just
interesting.
trying to solve it
That's
all.
something I haven't thought of. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I can get back to you on that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I would love to hear about that.
I certainly think in that question, I think it would make sense to have a conversation with our partners on the housing authority, since that's what they're exploring on their land, is to do the long-term lease model, I believe. So I know you probably already kind of
I am
communicate with
a little
MHP
familiar
on
with
that.
that. Yes,
so,
I have. Yeah,
but I think it's something to look at, to learn from
right.
as well.
Can we just go back to on the North Quincy lot, 2.4 acres? Would it be zoned for multifamily because it's in a multifamily?
I don't believe it's
don't.
in a multifamily district.
Okay, it's not.
Let me just check. It's in a rural B district.
Okay.
However, yeah, it's very close to that.
It's okay.
So, 2.4 acres. It will. Most rural districts have more setback requirements to cater or to adhere to that rural character, as well as you can only build single and 2-family.
Okay. Okay.
So if we do want something more, something multifamily, which about 4 to 5 units even, we could get a comprehensive permit, and we can in our RFP we can set the criteria as we want a developer to build it to match with the neighborhood. We don't want it to seem too tall, but there are ways to build there are some units that I've seen in nearby cities or places where a 4 or 5 unit building can be designed in such a way that it does conform to the rest of the character. It doesn't seem too out of place. So that's something that when we want to look at the design guidelines, we can look at, keeping the character of neighborhood, but also achieving our goal of creating more units.
Mm-hmm.
great. Should we discuss of these three properties? Do you, as a board, want to look into all three of them more, or two of them, or
Yes.
one of them, or?
I
discuss-
personally would like to look at all three. I think that the property that was just presented to us, the Green Street property, is the one that I personally find the most interesting, but I know it's the one that has sort of least assessments to it done right now. For me, that seems like a little bit more of a long-term thing. I know that these other plots are also much smaller, which limits what we can do with them, but I still think they're both great candidates. I know both their proximity to schools and stuff means that, to me, it seems like it would be good to think about potentially building homes and stuff for newer families on them. I think that would be a good idea. I know we have our needs for seniors as well, but just because of school proximity, that personally is what makes sense to me.
I'm for North Quincy and for Green Street. So I'm not a fan of Cypress because of the access to public transportation, grocery stores and whatnot. I think just to kind of steer, and also too with the little street, it's we'd have to like build the road in there. That's the one
That's
that
what
I'm
I-
kind of
Right, I think.
that's my least favorite. So I'd say Green Street, North Quincy, and then if we had to go to Cypress.
Right, that's, I'm following the same line as you. I just feel Cypress, to get in there and with all the other new building for the over 55 community as well, it'll be very dense area.
Is it possible in that area then we would be able to do something mixed use, or is that outside of the scope of this discussion?
I think that the zoning wouldn't allow.
I don't think the zoning,
The zoning might not allow, and also, I don't know if we do a comprehensive permit, I don't know if mixed use is
Okay,
allowed in that.
that's
because
completely fine.
That's, if zoning doesn't allow something, the only way you can is through a comprehensive permit. And I don't believe comprehensive permits are for mixed use.
Okay, that's completely fine.
No,
Just wanted
thank
to
you for
check.
that's a good question.
I do think before we go too far down these paths, so that we have to bring it before the select board, just to really get their thoughts on strategy for what we want to do with these.
okay.
Because I think it's again very it's exciting prospects, but I think just getting their buy-in first and foremost is the buy-in from the rest
Right,
is first and foremost very important.
Yeah, and I think it's from what Lucas said, there could be, parcels that are easier to do within a short term, have like a short term and a long term,
Yes.
correct.
So that could be something, but I thought that was something good. But yeah, I think, again, we can have this, and also at our April meeting, we can continue this conversation. And then I can bring this up with the select board and see, or we'll see how we can, either we hire the consultants and view all three or just all two. I think that's something we'll have to consider. And you can take some more time, and then again, at the next meeting, maybe we can talk about it again also.
Okay. That sounds great.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
No,
regarding
I've said.
that?
Yep.
All right. So we're moving on to the affordable home care funding options.
Yeah, so earlier, planning department had proposed an affordable home repair program along with a rental assistance program to be mostly funded by CPC funds and partially by affordable housing trust funds. And we did apply for an eligibility application to the CPC earlier in December of 2025. However, after doing some research, we found that CPC restrictions would only allow existing deed-restricted units and other public housing units to be funded with CPC funds, and not residents who qualify under income thresholds. So because of that, it would really restrict and narrow the number of potential residents who could apply for the program. And so we decided to table that and look at that later. And during this month, I I sent a memo. I sent it on Monday evening, I believe, and that this memo looks at 3 alternatives sources of funding that could support a more broader and effective program. The first source is mass housing. It's the Housing Improvement Loan Program. That's the first one. And then we have the MA-CDBG, which is the Massachusetts Community Development Block Grant Program, which is a federal program. And then we have a state-funded home modification loan program. So these are the 3 programs. And then the fourth one, the trust funds. They remain a viable option, offering the greatest flexibility to implement, which, and so I can kind of go through some of these, very broadly, and then we can have a discussion at the end. And also I have some updates from Habitat for Humanity. So when it comes to this, and so kind of, the reason was to look at funding sources that were not CPA and had the least amount of restrictions. Also, during my research, I looked at existing home repair programs with Habitat for Humanity in towns where Habitat for Humanity and the Trust collaborated. North Andover, Middleton, Beverly, and Danvers were some of the towns that I reached out to and talked to some of their housing trust members or their planners. In North Andover, they initially proposed to use CPC funding along with Affordable Housing Trust funding, and however, after they got it approved, the CPC Coalition told them that they can't have the regulations are too broad. It can only apply to what I mentioned before, units that comply with the CPA statute. So they decided to use just trust funds. Other towns are similar. Beverly did that, and then now is going to use CDBG funds, Community Block Development Grant funds, to fund their an affordable home repair program with Habitat for Humanity in Essex County. Middleton is also a very recent one, I believe, in Plymouth County. I have to confirm that, but they just launched their affordable home repair program with about $25,000 per household, and they're doing it with just trust funds. So all of them are either using just trust funds or another source. So I thought it would be prudent to look at different funding sources. Just going through mass housing home loan improvement program. These are it's a statewide program that provides fixed rate financing to homeowners for repairs, upgrades, and home maintenance. And the loans are provided through participating banks with the Home Improvement Loan Program Network across Massachusetts. Borrowers can apply for loans ranging from $7,500 to about $50,000, depending on the scope of the project. The program uses some flexible guidelines that may allow more households to qualify than traditional lending options. Closing costs can be rolled into the loan as well. So see, there's some of the, and also loans are offered with fixed interest rates. So this is some of the advantages of the program. Applicants must be the owner-occupant. Some eligibility, they must live in their home as their primary residence. And they must have they have good credit and stable income that meets the program's requirements. So some of the advantages that I looked at is that this program is an ongoing program rather than a competitive grant cycle. I believe there is no lengthy application period, extended waiting time before funds become available, but would need to double check that. Partnering with the bank and Habitat for Humanity would reduce the administrative responsibilities of the trust. That are some. and then some drawbacks or disadvantages. It takes the form of a loan rather than a deferred loan, which means homeowners could be expected to repay funds in other sources. In other towns, it was a deferred loan, and each year the loan would be forgiven if they do not move out of the house. So this is something that could be a burden to some residents and maybe not feel that for them to feel the need to apply. And also because it is associated with the bank, it could limit Habitat for Humanity's nonprofit status in working. And I don't know if they have worked with them. So that could be something. It would be something that we would be a separate program from Habitat. We would just we would send homeowners and have them apply, and then once they receive the loans, we could help finance that. But that's something we'd have to look into with mass housing. Any questions before I move on? The next one is the Massachusetts Community Development Block Grant Program. So the CDBG program, it's a federally funded and it's a competitive grant program designed to help cities and towns meet a broad range of community development needs. Housing rehabilitation or housing repair is an eligible activity under that program. So though it's a federal program, and there are entitled cities and towns in Massachusetts that have income requirements of a percentage of the population that are low income that automatically are eligible for funding every year. And so this is something that we explored. I did have, and so I'll just go with, so eligible activities are included work that addresses conditions that pose an immediate threat to the health, safety, or structural integrity of the home. Some of the loan conditions are UHLC has established a per unit funding cap of $35,000. So this is a lot more, and if we do receive that, we could service a lot more homes with this program. This is the deferred payment loan, so similar to how Habitat for Humanity for the existing program, it would be forgiven a part of it would be forgiven every year, and also there would be no interest. There would only be a stipulation that they would have to pay back the loan incrementally if they move from that house. The good thing is, some advantages are, this program works with Habitat for Humanity. They can use these funds to build, so we wouldn't have to create our own program. We could just use these funds to pay into an existing program, unlike the mass housing. The CDB program are awarded as a grant, so the program could be implemented with little or no direct expenditure of the trust funds, which is a good thing because we don't have any direct source other than CPA funding. However, it is a very highly competitive program with no guarantee of funding in any given cycle. And we do have approximately 1 year waiting period before funds are dispersed because we have to have a long public engagement period for that in order to use those funds. It's a part of the HUD guidelines. And also the deadline is April 2026, so it is a very long application, so it's something that we would have to, if we do have the capacity to apply for that, something that I have to consider. I will share this. So I met with CMRPC on Tuesday, it's the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission. They offer planning services to neighboring towns. So one of the people I met there who has specific knowledge and expertise on the CBDG program, and talking to him, he said Shrewsbury's score when they do evaluate which programs are eligible for those funds, they look at it as a percentage of how many percentage of residents what percentage of residents are low income as a percentage of the whole population. And so Shrewsbury, unfortunately, does score pretty low on that. About a 2 out of an 8. He didn't really explain the whole of the whole scoring system, but we are low on that, so it would be very highly unlikely that we would receive those funds. So that was something unfortunate to hear, but it was something to learn about. And then at some point you could even do a regional. So he told us we could do a regional application, if we work with other neighboring towns and say, although they are higher income communities in central Massachusetts, we do have a population of moderate to low income who would benefit from this program. And so he told us that's something to consider for the future. So although I did write a memo, so that's something to consider, unfortunately. So it's good that I had that conversation to know that it might not be possible, but it could be if we do a regional level. Any questions?
Yeah, to me, it seems like due to the relatively quick turnaround we'd have to have this and the amount of things that we're asking to do and the low likelihood, I think that personally it might make sense to focus on other areas rather than this specific one.
Yeah.
It seems likely.
And then the next one we're looking at is a home modification loan program. It's a state program that provides 0% interest loans ranging from $1,000 to $50,000. It's a program designed to support older adults and individuals living with a disability in maintaining their independence and remaining safely in their homes. HUD income guidelines are based on the HUD published median income for the Boston area. It is the program applies these guidelines to the whole of Massachusetts. They choose Boston, not just each area. So for 2025, eligible gross income ranges from $231,600 for a single person household. So it is a very large threshold. And I'm not sure, and some of the advantages are, it operates on a rolling basis. There are no deadlines. There are no mandatory payment requirements. The loan is triggered upon the sale of property, similar to other loans. It can also be used to construct accessory dwelling units, ADUs, which I think is pretty good. The program features generous income thresholds, making it sell to the vast majority of applicants. However, some of the disadvantages are it means it's not a program that's specifically targeted to moderate to low income households. So I don't know, it might be something that's not 100% aligned with the goals of the trust. But they do, when I did talk to them, they have that, but they do focus on trying to reach out to households who meet that income threshold below 80% AMI. Also, it is a state program, so although there were no deadlines, I'm not sure how much funding it actually has and how many units or households can be serviced. I believe they came to the senior center a few years ago, like either before COVID or during 2022, and they have been working on some households in Shrewsbury. So that is something that is a benefit, that it's the actual program that's being currently run in Shrewsbury. One thing, when I talked to Habitat, so when they do work, Habitat is sometimes hired as a contractor for this. So they would hire Habitat and that funding. So that's something to consider as well.
Question I have on this,
Yeah.
living with a disabled adult child. I've looked into this program before, and I could be wrong. Do they put a lien on your house while that loan's outstanding?
That could be correct. I would have to double check that.
That's what I remember, because I was looking into it, and then I said, you know what, I don't want to lien on my house.
Yeah.
So I think that could be a big disadvantage if that still holds true. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Call out.
Yeah. And then at last we have trust funds. So we do have more than $1 million in funding available. If alternative sources cannot be secured or are not available within a reasonable time frame, the trust can still move forward and implement a pilot program. And if the trust would like to explore that, use funding. This would be department allocates about, if we do $120,000 from the trust funds for the first round, providing approximately $12,000 per household for up to 10 households. This funding level will allow the town to launch a program in a meaningful way while preserving the majority of trust funds for other affordable housing initiatives. Depending on program utilization outcomes, we could consider additional rounds and secure funding within that, if we have some more time. It would allow us great flexibility because we wouldn't have prior approval. We wouldn't need to apply for any grants or federal funding sources. Trust funds, as I mentioned previously, they have been incorporated in communities such as North Andover and Middleton that are currently implemented those using trust funds. They can serve as successful models for how the trust can implement a similar program. And then, however, some disadvantages are, relying solely on trust funds would limit the program's long-term sustainability, because we don't get that. We might not get 100% of the funding back, or if at all, if it's forgiven. And this would support a limited number of households, and subsequent rounds of the program would require additional trust funding allocations. So I think from this memo, we're seeking feedback from the trust on which funding mechanism to prioritize or research. Each option carries different trade-offs in terms of the timeline, the eligibility, the administrative burden, and the cost to the trust. So I think something that's one we want to discuss. You can discuss that, and then after that, I can mention an update from Habitat for Humanity. If you would like to mention now, or you want to discuss for a little bit before.
I'm happy to discuss. I know that one thing that did concern me a little bit about these loans is the idea that they would need to be immediately repaid upon someone moving out. I could see that potentially really disrupting someone's plans, especially if they're in a lower income bracket. I also I can see on the HILP, one of the sort of requirements for eligibility is that the applicants must have like a good credit and stable income, and that's something that might not be available to people in these situations. But I do understand the need to create something more sustainable than just giving out our funds.
Right.
As nice as that would be.
And I think the reasoning for having that is sometimes some people might use the loan and then they just use it to improve their house, and
so
when they quickly sell it, they sell it
Right.
for a higher price. So having them, and that will would they actually are they actually needing that? So to allow, I think from the memo and then from my from the Affordable Housing Trust Action Plan, this is primarily to help seniors and low and moderate income people remain in Shrewsbury.
Okay,
So
got it.
a lot of people who would downsize, or who cannot afford these repairs or any improvements might choose to downsize and sell because they can't, or it can't even take care of it. So this is really help some people to stay in their home.
Got it. Okay, yeah, if that is the goal, then
Yeah.
that seems like the best option out of all of these to me.
There's a lot in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
No. I think
It's really, I'm
we
like,
should keep this for the
I
next
gotta-
meeting
I
as
think-
well.
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, I think that would be great.
that would be a little better.
I
Sharon's over reread.
below that, the habitat one.
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, here.
I
I have several.
Let me just, okay. So I did meet with Habitat for Humanity earlier today. And so in my initial meeting in February, I did tell them that, this is something the trust might be interested in. You could come with a proposal and I could present this to the trust. So they made an MOU for what a home repair program would look like, as well as they shared how the program could work. So something that they told us is Habitat for Humanity, not only do they do all the contracting work, but they also help with the whole application process throughout, so they give that whole, they give that help. They also, I just received this today, which is why I didn't put this in the drive, but if you'd like, you can read some of it, pass this around. So they gave an example of Holliston, did the repairs using ARPA funds, and they used the senior center and other nonprofits to really get that outreach. So the trust and the town's role was mostly to do outreach for the program and the funding. And Habitat for Humanity did the rest. And so kind of from this, they kind of were like, okay, if this is a program, they would want to start from July 1st to June 30th, July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027. This is to assist low-income homeowners in Shrewsbury. The cost was about $120,000 for the trial year, and Shrewsbury will reimburse up to a maximum of $20,000 per home repair. So this is what they kind of came to me. I want to just bring this up, and I want to also keep this for the next meeting so we have a more deeper discussion. Something that they also proposed is realistically for each town, they would do about 4 to 6 households per year. And if we're keeping about 12,000, because max they cap is at 25,000. So they also have some funds and we have some funds. If we do 12,000 for about 6 or 5, it would be about 50 to 60,000 in just trust funds.
Okay.
And this is just for a preliminary or a pilot program.
So would the other half of the funds come from Habitat, or would the person who's get a loan for that amount?
Habitat would loan them.
So and Habitat would work with them to secure the loan, to get the loan, the application and all that, but they would provide the loan.
Yeah, and Habitat, again, they would say, there is no obligation, there's very little obligation for them to pay back too. So a lot of the times it gets forgiven because they've lived in that for so many years.
Okay.
And I think the reason for have that is to encourage them to stay in that house, and then so that it really serves the people in that, and that there's not too much, again, to help people remain and have that stability to reign in the community.
And the funds would not be repaid back to the trust?
My understanding was it's not necessarily going to be.
Okay.
But that's what I told them, that the trust doesn't have any other than CPA funding, which does not apply to this program. The trust might want a way to some sort of funding to come back. So this can be something that we can talk about, of how we could structure the program in a way that allows us to have some funding, if it's a later point, but to give it back to the trust, if that's something that we want to consider.
So that could be, we could establish those guidelines, so we could.
Work with Habitat, yeah.
If, you don't stay in the house for 10 years, you gotta pay back each, X amount, or something like that. Or over 10 years, we could just, might have to let it go. But, or however, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
This is helpful, too, and I think you said they would administer it themselves, it wouldn't really be us?
Yeah, we would just recommend, and they would give, detailed every interval, reports on which
Yeah.
which house they're working on, who all have they approved, and then go through the process of cost estimates of how much it would cost, and then come back to the trust.
Okay, and they
that's
would
great,
have
too.
the people to do the work. So
Yeah.
They would, okay.
Yeah, this looks really promising. I know that you haven't had as much time to look into it.
Yeah.
I'd really definitely like this to be added to the agenda to talk about next meeting. I think this is potentially really promising.
Right. So I think, Lucas, so the way I was looking at, so this was already, this program, we have been thinking about it for a while. We met with Habitat in 2024 in September. And so the reason, and then we wanted CPC funding to help with that program, that the existing program, we want to just use that funds. And then we realized that CPC wasn't working. So I looked at how we could use these other funds to just supplement this existing Habitat for Humanity program.
Got it.
So that was the idea. So, so that's something to consider if the trust would want to do a pilot with just trust funds, and then at a later time find a more secure funding source. And then because this is only for about 4 to 6 households, it would be a smaller burden on the trust. So it's something to consider. We can, again, I will scan all these documents and keep them for the April meeting so that we have a discussion again.
Great.
And if you want Habitat to come and present, maybe, if that is, I know if you presented once or twice now.
Yeah, they've come a couple of
So,
times, yeah.
but yeah, so we can have this discussion, but if you have any questions, I can relay that to them.
I feel like it makes sense for me. And we're still obviously talking about it, but to have our own pilot program with our funds, because I know that we are also doing a pilot program for the
Rentals.
rental assistance,
rental.
and I feel like as we obviously do these pilot programs almost simultaneously in a way, we're also gathering information about what programs the community wants to see, which ones will be most helpful for folks. And obviously there's different, I think, I'm going to say, I guess, constituency groups for each one. I don't know if that's the right term, but,
Yeah, this
Right,
one is
right.
more home ownership and
Correct,
that one's
correct.
rental, yeah.
and so I like that we're going down different avenues to see how best we can serve people with the dollars that we have. But also, of course, being mindful that we have a limited income stream, so
Yeah,
Right,
That's
but the trust is here to help,
to help, yeah.
you know, make it affordable for people to
Right.
stay in their homes
Right.
and apartments. So I do like this program as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with Carlos. If it makes sense if we're funding multiple things on trial period to
yeah.
keep doing.
So, yeah, so multiple options, I think, to consider. Either you can, you can look more into the different funding options I said. You can, if you want some more information, if you want to explore that, I could, at the next meeting, you could come back to me. If you want to table a couple of those options for now and just look at trust funds for now for this pilot program, that could be something. So at the next meeting, we can have more of that conversation as well, depending on how you all are leaning towards.
I feel like we have more control over just our trust funds.
That is
And
true.
just, you know, with a pilot program from there, we're not dependent upon banks or loans or the homeowners trying to secure those loans.
Yeah, and as Carlos mentioned, I think that once we do this program, we might have once we do the pilot, we might have a better idea of how these different strengths and weaknesses of each options will sort of stack up to the reality of the situation on the ground. Sometimes you just have to go for it.
Right.
All right, we will keep this for the next meeting as well. So I will,
Okay.
all their documents, I'll scan that and send that to you for the next meeting.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
of
you for
course.
doing this. This is
Yes.
some great work and a lot of,
Yeah.
A lot of work.
a lot of work,
Yeah.
a lot of time on the phones and
Yep.
putting things together.
I have
We
so
do
many-
appreciate it.
a
No,
lot of
you're
emails.
on fire this week.
A lot of emails from all those different towns and back and forths, but it's been great to learn.
Right.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, I think next we are review of the Affordable Housing Trust Action Plan.
So I thought this would be an important time, while we are trying to get all these programs together to look at our Affordable Housing Trust Action Plan. You know, it's a document that will guide the actions of the trust, you know, for the next four years. And so I wanted to go through a couple of actions, policies, and priorities that we are either working towards or that we should consider. And kind of, I'm just going to pull out some important points that I thought. And if you also kind of notice something else, we can also, please feel free to include that as well. Some kind of information. So much of the existing affordable housing stock in Shrewsbury was built before 1970. And a lot of owner-occupied units are overrepresented in being built before 1970 than renter-occupied units. So that could be an indication that there are a lot of owner-occupied affordable units that would need a home repair. That's something that I might have inferred. And also our lack of rental units and is something that that I looked at. Because there is, compared to any market rate rental units, low income rental units are really in shortage in Shrewsbury. And that can be, so that was something that I presented at the CPC meeting, when Martha at the February CPC meeting, that it's kind of a paradox of, even though we're farther away from Boston because of our lack of market or rental options, it actually pushes our median market rate higher than some places closer to Boston because of our lack of available our renting options. So, which I think with the rental assistance program will kind of ease some of the burden that almost 40% of renter households in Shrewsbury spend about 30% of their income towards housing. So hopefully that program can be targeted to help them. So that's a good thing we're working towards. Also, what was from our housing production plan that ended up being in our action plan is a housing rehabilitation program directed at seniors and families with economic hardship that could assist with addressing deterioration and extraordinary maintenance they cannot afford. Noting that while a traditional housing rehabilitation program for homeowners will not create more units, it would meet a documentable housing need of existing residents. So something we're working towards, identified in the plan. So that's something good. And then I'm going to go to some of our goals. So funding goals. So leverage private and public funds to create at least 25 units over the next 5 years to support affordable housing needs of mixed incomes, particularly very low, 30 and 50% AMI, and also help the town incrementally reach its housing production goals, while being deeply sensitive to the local needs, deeply affordable housing units. So hopefully with our vacant parcel analysis and vacant parcel, kind of choosing those to build, we want to kind of hopefully achieve this funding goal within the next 4 to 5 years. Leverage funds that will support senior and disabled households and first-time home buyers. So in the fall we could, or next year we could talk about a home down program or a mortgage assistance program. So that is something that we talked about. I know Carlos brought this up, so we can do some more that other towns are doing, like Sturbridge, I believe. So we can look into that and see how we can implement that for the fall or the spring. Coordinate land acquisition efforts to evaluate opportunities for affordable housing development, including the prioritization of existing town-owned land. So that's something that we're working on. Great. That's all within funding goals, and then we're going to move on to operation goals, which some of these include evaluate ways in which the trust can collaborate with the Community Preservation Commission, including the possibility of securing annual allocation of Shrewsbury CPA's funds to support the trust initiatives. we're working on that. We're going to have a rental assistance hopefully approved at town meeting to be able to have that program. So exciting. Advocate for zoning changes to increase production and preservation of affordable housing, and support the preservation of open space. So I think with parcels that larger parcels that we do consider, we want to promote development that is more clustered and uses less amount of space so that we preserve more open space while also preserving the character of the neighborhood. And within that, and we also encourage public engagement with the trust, including press releases and the trust website and email. So I think these are some of the wanted to kind of look back and see how much work we've actually done over the last 2 years and how we are moving forward with implementing some programs.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any questions, comments?
I think it's just great to be reminded of these as we move forward. Not just for us, not in our awareness, but for the community as
Yeah,
well.
right.
I think when we had the consultant help us put this together back in 2023 into 24, I think that we were very ambitious of what we wanted to do. And so it feels good to be reminded about the progress we have made and the work that we need to do to really actualize a lot of the stuff that's in here. And I do think it's not a heavy document for folks at home to read. So always encourage community members to just take a look and see what's in there, and also reach out to us if there are things that we should be working on that tie into what's in it.
Well said. We've come, well, it's been a long process, but now we are getting to the point we are designing some programs and having the opportunities to work with CPC and the Housing Authority, so it's definitely made a lot of progress. So. All right, moving on. The MHP Local Boards and Commission Training Series.
Yeah, so MHP, Massachusetts Housing Partnership, offers these training series to planners, affordable housing trust members of different boards and commissions on different, and they have it, every either in the spring or the fall. And these are training series for to kind of familiarize people with what the affordable housing process. The first presentation looked at what. So these are online, through virtual. So they have it's about 3. So it's going to be 3 trainings in March every Wednesday from 11 to 12:30. However, they're going to be recorded online after, so you can always watch them later. These, especially for our new member Lucas, they kind of gives an idea of all the different boards that are involved in the affordable housing, the process of creating affordable housing. The planning board, a zoning board, a conservation commission, the affordable housing trust, the community preservation committee, and so that was the first presentation. The second one is, how do we, specifically with the affordable housing trust, how can they build and create more affordable units? So a lot of that information is really relevant to affordable housing trust members. So I do encourage to review that, even if you have. It's always, especially with me, I always sometimes need a refresher of what we are doing, and they also give examples. They invite guest speakers from different towns, and we look at examples of some successful projects that are being done. So I think that's a great example of what you can do. I found, like, at the previous one, they found, like, or they invited 2 affordable housing developers with that. So
Bless you.
Bless you.
So 2 affordable housing trust developers affordable housing developers. So that was something that that we may want to contact them in the future for a project. So it's good to know that, because sometimes when you just Google affordable housing developers, not really many show up. So it's good to have that within our as a resource. So every Wednesday, I'm going to share that with you.
Right.
Good to learn how the process of affordable housing happens.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Are you going to send us the link?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll send you the link.
perfect. That would be great. Thank you. Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. CMRPC Regional Housing Coordinator Service FY27
Yeah.
agreement.
So there is a new agreement between the town and CMRPC for regional housing coordinator services. CMRPC helps us with any housing related work that the trust is doing. So they assist our town and other towns as well. So this document is us to kind of authorize that for the funds. So I think the difference is we're not going to have the trust sign. We're just going to have the trust vote to approve, and then Chris is going to sign on behalf of the trust. So if I read, they did attach a scope of services, so I can read a couple of things. This program was created to provide member towns with professional staff to coordinate housing production, ensure diverse housing stock, and capacity to respond to housing crisis that exists within the central Massachusetts region. Provides administrative support to the Housing Trust, assists in development, approval, and tracking of housing production plans, assists in preparing, reviewing bylaws, tracks legislation related to housing, develops relationships with local developers, service providers, lenders. So there's a wide range of array of different things that they're able to do. So as we move into the process of implementing the programs that we want, we'll probably really heavily rely on them. So it's good that we know that we have their assistance.
Okay, so you'd like us to make a motion to allow Christopher McGoldrick to sign the CMRPC Regional Housing Coordinator Services FY27 agreement on behalf of the Affordable Housing Trust.
Correct.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, done?
Is this what I signed at the last meeting?
Yeah,
Okay, so we're just,
they just changed that to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you did a good job. Thank you.
So our next meeting date is Thursday, April 9th at 7 p.m.
Is that a question?
No, that's a statement.
No.
Good. It's
No,
that's
no,
what I have.
I'll just confirm that. It is April 9th. We do have it.
I have April 9th.
April 9th, okay.
I think as this, I'll probably email a little bit ahead to just confirm members can attend, so that'll be good.
Okay.
I think just for that, I do want to flag Finance Committee's having their public hearing
Okay,
on the warrant, which I think, at least that's what it says in my calendar here.
okay. So that'll be good. I'll look at that. I'll look at my calendar, and then, yeah, we may have to conference for May.
I would think. Well, I would just say, because it's up on the annual town meeting warrant, that
Yeah.
we would want to be present for our article, which is the CPC one.
Oh.
So that's why I flagged that.
That is a good, okay, all right, thank you. I will, I'll get back to you on that and see if we need to, move it
Okay.
earlier or later or, another day, so that I will get back to you. Thank you for that, Carlos.
We can just have a break in the middle.
I do have one more quick thing before we adjourn. When do you feel we should meet with the select board? Sooner or later regarding these properties?
I think in relation to the item we were talking about earlier, probably I would say sooner, just so that we can get an understanding of what my colleagues on the board
What
feel
our
and think
overall- Okay.
about it.
Yeah,
That
I
way we
mean,
can explore, based on that, we can,
So yeah,
possibly move forward in that. Okay.
If you want to, we can again bring this up at our April meeting and have the discussion. And then after April meeting, we can formally reach out, or we can reach out to select board and have that conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you could coordinate with Chris and with the manager, I think that would probably make sense to figure out a timeline.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.